Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, three checked. Okay,
Yes, sir.
fine. All right. So I'm recording this session. Kindly maintain decency. The subject code is here BMLS 2004, and the subject code is human anatomy and physiology. So in this subject, currently we are in the unit 3. In the unit 3, we have lymphatic system and special organs, special sensory organs. So lymphatic system we already finished. Lymphatic system is also called drainage system of the body, where excessive fluids, filtered fluids will be recirculated back to the normal circulation with the help of a uh, specialized blood vessels called lymphatic vessels, right? Then we discussed about the sensory organs. So sensory organs, we have eyes, ears, nose, and tongue. They are the special sensory organs. So in the unit 4, we have this, the second topic in unit 3rd is eye, ear, nose, and tongue. We already finished eye, we finished ear. Then in today's lecture, we will discuss about physiology of smell or the function of nose. Okay. Then we will also discuss about the tongue. So a quick revision. So these are the sensory organs. The primary purpose of eyes is to detect light, and those receptors, the receptors present in the eye are called as telereceptors. Telereceptors because they will detect the light, okay, from far away object. So that is why the receptors present in light are in eyes are called as telereceptors, or they are also called as photoreceptors. They will detect the light, okay, photoreceptors. Then you have ears. So the main purpose of ears is to detect the sound, and also they will also plays an important role in maintaining the balance of the body or equilibrium of the body posture. Then nose, you already know, it will detect the smell. Then tongue will detect various types of tastes, and skin will detect touch, pressure, and temperature. Now there is a special correlation between two sensory organs, and those organs are tongue and nose. Okay, so both tongue and nose will detect by the help of chemical receptors. Okay, so they will detect with the help of chemical receptors. So what exactly they do is they will they will detect minute changes in the substances that are dissolved in the mucous membrane of either tongue or in the nose. So first they will dissolve the substance. After dissolving, the substance will release certain volatile gases. The, the substances will release certain volatile gases. Keep in mind, we can only taste or we can only smell only when the substance is able to dissolve in the water. When it dissolved in the water, obviously it will release certain gases, certain fumes, and those fumes are very mild. They're very tiny. They're very fraction. Okay, but still, our receptors can able to detect these fumes. Okay, and we can able to sense the taste. We can able to appreciate the taste, or we can able to appreciate the smell. So such substances only we can able to detect. So such substances are called volatile substances, and they must be water soluble. Why I'm saying this? Because can you able to taste the plastic? No, we can't, because plastic cannot dissolve in water. So we cannot understand the taste of the plastic. Or you cannot taste or smell the glass or sand, because they won't dissolve in water. They won't release any fumes. If they're not releasing any fumes, we can't detect anything. So both taste and smell together evolved for the same purpose of appreciation of taste and smell. And another interesting thing is both of them share same types of receptors, and um, we can only detect the taste only when we can able to smell it. Up 80% of appreciation of taste is dependent on smell. If you have any runny nose, if you have any nasal blockage, if you are eating anything, you can't appreciate the taste of the diet you are eating, because uh, here okay, in one way your tongue is detecting the chemical texture, but your those chemical texture is also releasing certain fumes, but those fumes are blocked in the nose. Maybe due to blockage of some mucus, your nose is unable to detect the fumes. If there is no fumes, then there won't be any smell. If there is no smell, your brain cannot process what you are eating. Your brain cannot appreciate what you are eating because it is a combination of both chemicals and fumes, gases, chemicals and gases. So there is a tight correlation between the nose and the tongue, since both of them are using same type of receptors, mucosal receptors, okay, chemical receptors. So 80% of taste is dependent on smell. So that is the primary purpose of nose. So this is the function of the nose, okay? Nose primary function is for appreciation of taste. Then another interesting feature about nose is, or smell is, compared to other special organs, other sensory organs, okay? Like your eyes, your ears, or your tongue, okay? The nose receptors are directly connected to the brain. There is no fibers. There are no lengthy neurons for nose. Believe it or not, your brain is sitting on a bone inside the skull called ethmoid bone. It is this ethmoid bone which will separate the oral cavity from the cranial cavity. So on the top you have the cranium, the brain, and on the bottom you have the face or your oral cavity. So this oral cavity and the cranial cavity was separated by a bone called ethmoid bone. Okay, I will show the ethmoid bone structure later. Now, in this ethmoid bone, um, from the hippocampus of the brain, directly a neuron, a bunch of neurons was descended down just below the ethmoid bone. So a group of receptors was descended down just below the ethmoid bone, situating inside the nasal cavity, inside the nose. And that bunch of neurons are called as bulb, olfactory bulb. All means air. Faction means to sense. Air sensing bulb. And this olfactory bulb is located inside the nasal cavity. Okay. So, and this olfactory bulb is connected to the hippocampus of the brain. And there is some interesting feature about this hippocampus. Our child memories or our deep embedded memories are stored in the hippocampus region of the brain. Our very distant memories are embedded within the hippocampus region of the brain. And the smell is connected to the hippocampus region. So certain smells, when we are smelling certain smells, immediately we will remember our childhood days. Smell has a very powerful effect on the brain to trigger deep memories. I don't know whether you experienced it or not. Maybe if you're roaming somewhere and if you got some, this samrani smell. If it is fortunately your childhood smell, means immediately you will recall those memories. So smell is one of the powerful neurostimulator. It can able to dig past memories of the brain. So that is something interesting feature about smell. And it takes very less time to process smell compared to all other special organs. It takes a very lengthy process in the ears to process the data because the sound wave need to travel in the cochlea and there are multiple receptors and that receptors data need to be processed and it will take a long time for the brain to process. The same applicable for eyes and same applicable for tongue. But it is not applicable for nose. Nose is directly connected to the brain and the time it requires for processing the smell is very less. And it can also trigger deep memories in the brain. So these are some interesting things about the smell. So by this, we will start the lecture about the nose and its function or its mechanism of smelling. Okay. Are you listening, me students, by the way? Or I'm simply blah blah. I'm telling some blah blah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So there is a huge market out there for smell. Okay. All perfumes. So these perfumes will trigger memories and they will attract easily. Okay. One more thing about smell, students. in our brain, we have some subconscious smelling part. Okay, uh, there are certain chemicals won't have a pungent smell. They won't release a pungent aroma, but still they will possess that But still there are certain substances that can attract the brain. Our brain will get attracted to something which we cannot smell directly, and such substances are called pheromones. 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 So pheromones are very important for attracting the opposite sex. In the animal kingdom, animals will detect each other with the help of pheromones. I hope you know what dogs will do. So dogs will always smell their surroundings because they are trying to, and also dogs will urinate in their surroundings. You know, it is a way of showing that the territory belongs to this particular dog. And they will also, by sensing different smells of that area, they can able to understand that localized group, what group of dogs are living there. So all this is done by pheromones. Okay, and second one is ants. Ants will follow the same pathway when they're walking to any direction. They won't walk randomly. Rather than they will walk in a single direction. How is it possible for ants? Because ants will release a chemicals and an unsmellable chemicals, and those chemicals are called pheromones. And the ants will follow this pheromone pathway. And the same applicable for even honeybees, many. And there is a theory in humans. If you are falling, if you are getting attracted to any some person, it can be either male or female. Okay, maybe subconsciously you may get attracted by their pheromones. Maybe you are unknowingly liking your brain liking their pheromones. That is why you are getting attracted to that person. Sometimes people say love is blind. Even the person not looks nice, but you still feel the person is attracted, and you can blame the pheromones for that. Okay. Yeah, these are some interesting things about smell and pheromones. Okay. Pheromones is a part of reproductive system, actually, that we will discuss in reproductive physiology. It's a system where we can able to we will get attracted to others by the chemicals, by the chemical signatures, which are called pheromones. And for this purpose only, we have hairs in our armpits. Okay. So the purpose of these hairs and is there are specialized glands that will release these pheromones in the armpit, and they will be evenly distributed in the air with the help of these hairs. So hairs will act as a distributors for these pheromones. So that is why even though we lost hair on the skin, most of the areas of our body, but still we possess a hair in our genital and armpit region is for releasing these pheromones to get at to attract opposite sex. These are some interesting things about all this. Okay, I think a revision of previous things. So we discussed in the beginning, we discussed about eye, its parts, everything, and individual functions of the parts of the eye. Then we discussed about blind spot. Then we discussed about erythroplay refraction, short sight, long sight, astigmatism, blindness. So blindness means the complete absence of any one of the organelle of the eye. It can be either defect in the retina, it can be either defect in the lens or cornea, sclera, anything. Absence of any one can result in complete blindness of the eye. Then we discussed about the anatomy of hearing, okay, anatomy and physiology of the hearing. So here in the ear, we segmented ear into three parts: outer ear or external ear, middle ear, and inner ear. External ear composed of ear pinna, external auditory canal, and tympanic membrane, whereas middle ear is composed of ear ossicles, eustachian tube, and oval window, whereas inner ear is composed of semicircular canals, cochlea, and vestibule. Right? Then then we discussed about this mechanism, the function of ear pinna, function of external auditory canal, function of the tympanic membrane. Then we discussed about function of ear ossicles and the function of eustachian tube, and even the function of the oval window of the ear. which is connected to the states. Then we discussed about ear cortex. Okay, in the ear cortex, So in the ear cortex, it contains the specialized hair-like structures, and those hair-like structures will vibrate, resulting in generation of the nerve impulses, and those nerve impulses will go through to the brain via cochlear nerve. Okay. Yeah. Then within this inner ear, we have two layers. One is bony labyrinth, and other one is membranous labyrinth. And inside this labyrinth, we will find two types of fluids: endolymph and perilymph. So there are two various densities of fluids, and because of this variation in densities, the sound wave will propagate efficiently throughout the cochlea of the inner ear. Actually, if I actually we can even discuss in depth about the exact mechanism of hearing. You know what exactly happens is there are many hair follicles along the length of this cochlea. Deep inside the cochlea, it will detect the bass, and in the starting, it will detect the high pitch. Okay, so high pitch sound will detect here, and low pitch sound will detect inside. Okay, so by processing the data from multiple receptors of the cochlea, our brain will process the data, and our brain will give some idea about what we are hearing. So we will start appreciating the music. So music is a combination of data received from multiple receptors of the cochlea. Actually, brain is one of the most powerful computers we have. Even the highly advanced computer cannot process this much huge amount of data. Just the data received from here alone will be equivalent to around 1 TB per second. Brain will receive around 1 TB of data per second from ear alone, and brain can efficiently process the data, and it can give some idea about what we are hearing. So just try to understand how much powerful our brain is, and it requires only some 9 volts of electricity to run. Okay, even the most advanced robots not have, or computers not have these capabilities, and all we require is some meat, some oxygen to our brain. If we eat, then the brain will do its job. Such a marvelous organ. So yeah. So I'm not going in depth about the exact mechanism of sound processing. You just you just know what is the outline about ear mechanism of hearing. That's it. Okay, so this is all about the ear. Then there is one more system in the ear called vestibular system. So vestibular system means it is a system where it will detect the balancing of the body. It will maintain the equilibrium or the posture of the body. So in this vestibular system, very simple, students, along with these hair cells, it has some calcium balls. I'm telling in a very normal words, calcium balls are calcium rocks. They're like a uh, tiny rocks inside the hair. So when you are tilting your head, these calcium rocks, or they're also called otoliths. These otoliths will fall on these hair cells, uh, resulting in stimulation of the corresponding hair cells. So upon getting stimulation, our brain will perceive this as a orientation of your brain, orientation of your head. So that's it. Let me show you one small game which I downloaded in my mobile long ago. It's called Free Balls or something. Just a second. I used to get really wonder by saying this particular application. Let me check. Let me show you. I don't know whether you can see them or not. See, in my mobile, it is just like a fluid balls, a dynamic balls in my mobile. So this effect is possible because of various sensors of my mobile. So the sensors are processing the orientation of my mobile, and they're giving a visual representation of what's happening. So such a dynamic sensors there. The similar sensors are there in our ears also, and by upon stimulation of these sensors, we can able to understand the orientation of our brain. So this is just a free ball game, but a very nice. You got my point, right? What I was trying to tell. How the air how the air maintaining the balance of body. That is possible by these otoliths and hair cells. It is like a census. Okay, so that is all about this ear. So next is functions of nose. So can anyone say functions of nose, students? So give me some functions of nose. Third sensory organ is nose. What are the functions of nose? Is it only meant for
The smell.
smell? That's it.
Smell.
Okay, smell, I'm agreeing.
Um,
The primary function of nose is smelling. Is there any other function for nose?
breathing.
Breathing, very good. Yeah, breathing. The secondary function of nose can be breathing. Both are primary functions only. Okay. Then any other functions? Breathing, smelling, then? Tell me. Breathing, smelling. Any other functions of nose, students? Try. Everyone, come up with answers. Can you able to taste without by closing nose?
Yes, it is. Yes, someone.
Yes, we can. Even taste appreciation is indirectly mediated by nose. You cannot taste by closing your nose, right? So appreciation of taste. Then any other functions of nose?
Sir, sneezing, sir. Sir, cleaning out the that
Perfect.
wind can
Sneezing.
by sneezing.
By sneezing reflex. Okay, sneezing. So what is why sneezing? To remove any dust particles. Very good.
Yes,
So
sir.
sneezing. Okay. So it will clear. It will clear the air pathway by nose only. Okay. Next, any other functions?
Filtering to air.
Uh,
Filtering to air.
it will also
Okay.
filter the incoming air. Very good. Nose will also act like a air filter. Since it has mucus, hair follicles, it will filter the air. If there is any dust particles, means those dust particles will stay in the nose itself. They won't go deep inside. So very good. So it will filter the air. So far we got for breathing, for smelling, for taste appreciation, then for sneezing, then filtering of air. Any other functions? Do you know if you're breathing directly dry air, your lungs will destroyed. If a dry air entered into lungs means lungs will get destroyed because they're highly fragile structures. Air
So
should
it
be
regulates
moisture.
the temperature of breath.
Okay, very good. Okay, it will regulate the temperature of the breath. Very good. You know, we should not allow cold air to enter inside the lungs. So there is a hair pathway. The nose pathway will ensure it will humidify the air. That will be correct answer. Yeah, it will increase the temperature of the air so that humidification will happen. That means air will become moisture. So humidification of air is done by the nose only. Okay, only humidified air should be entered inside the lungs. Pure oxygen or pure any gas should not enter into lungs. That will damage the lungs. Okay, or you will get severe irritation. So humidification of air is possible by nose. Any other functions other than this? It will also prevent any pathogens to enter inside the lungs. That can also be, we can say. So anyway, you have given enough answers, enough points to satisfy my question. So let us see what are the functions of the nose. So the primary function of nose is breathing. Then second one is air conditioning of inspired air. So when I say air conditioning, that means it will humidify the inspired air. Then it will also protect lower airway. So when I say lower airway, it is just the this one, the lungs. Okay. Then ventilation and drainage of peripheral drainage of peripheral lung system. PNS. This I will rectify. Okay, this is not peripheral nervous system. This is something. Okay. Then fifth one is olfaction. Olfaction is appreciation of smell. Then nasal resistance. Nasal resistance means it will prevent any objects to enter inside the nose. Okay, it will resist any pathogens or anything to come deep inside the lower respiratory tract. Then vocal resonance. Yeah, right? If you're speaking by closing your nose, your words will be in high pitch. Your voice will be like more like a female. So that resonance of voice is mediated by nose. So this nose will enhance the it will act like a medium for the air or for the sound to resonate. So vocal resonance is also possible by nose. And last and final is nasal reflexes. Nasal reflexes means simply they are sneezing reflexes. So these are the primary functions of the nose. The abbreviation of PNS I will let you know later. Okay. So these are the functions of the nose for breathing, for air conditioning, for protecting lower air pathway, or for sensing of smell, nasal restriction, vocal resonance, and nasal reflexes. Okay, sneezing reflexes are the primary functions of the nose. Then, as I said, both smelling and taste are interrelated since both possess the same chemical receptors. So both has a very close connection. In fact, you can only appreciate the taste when you are able to smell. So 80% of taste appreciation is mediated by smelling. 80% of taste detection is mediated by smelling. Keep in mind. So both use the same chemoreceptors. So chemical receptors are called chemoreceptors. So they are stimulated by chemicals. Taste has 4 types of receptors, whereas smell can be different. Differentiate a large range of chemicals. Then both senses complement each other and respond to many of the same stimuli. Olfaction is smell, whereas gustation means taste. So smelling is called olfaction in medical terminology, whereas a taste is called as gustation. Gustation means taste. Appreciation of taste is called as gustation. Then both project to cerebral cortex and limbic system. So evoke strong emotional reactions. Both the taste and smell will evoke deep embedded memories in our brain. The deep embedded memories are present in the limbic system of brain. So both will trigger strong memories. Strong emotional memories will be triggered by these two. So I don't know taste, but smells will definitely trigger deep memories. And as I said, so this bone, in the beginning I said we have a bone inside skull, which will act as a partition between cranial cavity and oral cavity. And that bone is called ethmoid bone. I hope you can see this bone here. This is called ethmoid bone. And here you can see this olfactory bulb. So this olfactory bulb is directly coming from limbic system of brain. And the neurons are embedded in the nasal cavity on the superior aspect of the palatine bone. So this is called as olfactory bulb. So do you know it or not? So there are millions of receptors present in the nose. Okay. So the nose contains almost 10 to 100 million olfactory receptors in an area called olfactory bulb. Okay. So this olfactory epithelium lies in the superior part of the each nostril. So on the top of each nostril, you can find this olfactory epithelium. And in each nostril, the olfactory membrane has a surface area of about 2.4 square centimeters. By the way, in these nasal flaps, in order to moisture the air, only when you moisture the air, you can able to detect the smell. For that moisture purpose, these nasal cavity they will constantly secrete fluids. So by secreting the fluids, when the air get in contact with this nasal fluid, the air will get moistured. The air will become humidified. Only humidified air can be processed for sensation of smell. So that is why we have this nasal discharge. When there is any infection, generally what happens is the blood vessels present in this nasal cavity will get dilated. Um, I know you can't understand what I'm saying. It is an immune response. Vasodilation will happen uh, due to some pathogenic infection. So if there is any infection, there will be dilation of blood vessels. Due to dilation of blood vessels, there will be excessive filtration of fluid. Due to excessive filtration of fluid, those fluids will start leaking out from the nose as a cold. Okay, so that is why we will get runny nose when we catch any nasal infection. Since nose has a rich amount of blood supply for maintaining the moisture, any small infection can trigger excessive discharge of fluids that results in a runny nose. Okay, usually this is mediated by viruses particularly. So now let us see the structure of this olfactory bulb. So in the nose, we need to focus on this particular organ. This particular organ is called olfactory bulb. So what exactly the structure of this olfactory bulb? What are the parts present to this particular olfactory bulb? This olfactory bulb is made up of three important substances, three types of cells. Those cells are olfactory receptors, which are present at the end of the nerve terminals. Then it has certain supporting cells to maintain these neurons. Then it has basal cells, which are attached to the olfactory bulb. So together, basal cells, supporting cells, and nasal olfactory receptors together will make this olfactory bulb. Okay, this olfactory bulb is a combination of olfactory receptors, supporting cells, and basal cells. So let us see the organs. Okay, so olfactory organs. So contain olfactory receptors supporting epithelial cells, cover parts of nasal cavity. Then coming to the olfactory receptors. So first we have organs. Organs are this olfactory bulb is the organ, whereas the nose and the septums together they are the organs of olfaction. That means smelling. Then we have receptors. We have two. We have the primary receptor is chemoreceptor. Chemoreceptor will detect the chemicals and they will detect the smell. Okay, just a second. I can't say anything in my laptop. Can you hear me, students, by the way?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just a second. My, my display was completely shut down here. I can't see anything there. Just give me some time. This MS Teams has some issues, it seems. Okay, I got it. I got my computer back. Even for office work, we need these gaming laptops nowadays because the softwares become very much complicated. They require more RAM, more processors to run. A simple 8 GB is not sufficient to run these MS Teams. Just give me some time. Fourth unit will be interesting, students. In the fourth unit, we have body fluids. Okay. Can you see it? Can you see my cursor on the screen?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
Cells of.
yes.
Okay. Fine. That's it, students. So first we have olfactory organs, then we have receptors. Receptors are chemoreceptors, respond to the chemicals dissolved in the liquids. Then we have olfactory epithelium. So olfactory epithelium means these are the cells that are lined these neurons. Okay. So located on the roof of the nasal cavity, on the top of on the roof or on the top surface of the nasal cavity, you will see this olfactory epithelium. So this olfactory epithelium is a modified mucous membrane. It is a highly specialized modified mucous membrane where it can able to detect the chemical signatures from either from smell or from the taste. Okay, So they can trap airborne molecules and they can able to detect the evaporated or volatile substances from the air breeze. So it is a modified mucous membrane. Okay, so that's it. Olfactory epithelium is a modified mucous membrane, highly modified mucous membrane. So, I'm just giving some additional points about olfactory receptors. So, olfactory receptors are bipolar neurons. So, there are almost around 100 million receptors are present, or olfactory receptors present in the olfactory bulb. And these olfactory receptors contains small hair-like ciliary structures. Okay, and those structures will trap the air molecules and they will detect the smell. Okay, so that is all about the function of olfactory receptors. They will detect the odor of the air. Then let us see the mechanism of smell. So it's a very simple thing, but we need to discuss in a formal way. So first air will enter into nose, then this after entering air will get more humidified with the help of the nasal discharges. Upon humidification, the receptors will detect this volatile gases released by the air, and those gases will be processed by these olfactory receptors, and these receptors will send the signal to the olfactory bulbs, and the olfactory bulb will send this information to the brain, to the hippocampus of the brain via olfactory nerve. That's it. Okay, this is the mechanism of smell. So vaporized odor molecules or chemicals floating in the air will reach the nostril and dissolve in the mucus. So these volatile gases will dissolve in the mucus, okay, which is present on the rooftop. Then underneath this mucus, olfactory epithelium, okay, in the olfactory epithelium, specialized receptor cells are present, and those cells are called olfactory receptors. So these olfactory receptors will detect the dissolved air molecules in the mucus. Okay, they will detect and they will detect the odor or they will detect the smell. Then upon detection of the smell, these neurons will okay, they simply detected smell. So our nose can detect some few thousand variations of smells, some 80,000 to 1 lakh variations in smell can be detected by our nose. When coming it to the dogs, dogs can able to detect variation in the smells up to some 20 million. 20 million smell variations can be able to detect by the dogs. Dogs have a very powerful sensing uh, of smell. Okay, it has a very powerful, or a dog has a 10 times more olfactory neurons or olfactory receptors in its nose. Okay, so dog can able to differentiate even tiny variation in the smell. So even our noses are capable, but compared to dog, we are still chotawala. But still, that is sufficient for us to appreciate the world. Okay. Then okay. So upon detection of these odor molecules, the olfactory receptors will transmit this data to the olfactory bulb, okay, which is present on the backside of the nose. Then from olfactory bulb, the sensation is carried to the olfactory tract, to the olfactory area in the temporal lobe of the cerebral cortex. So with the help of this olfactory tract or olfactory neuron, the data will be transmitted to the cerebral cortex of the brain. In the brain center, so the brain will process the data and it will associate with memories and it will give some explanation to it. So that's it. That is all about the mechanism of smell. Then coming to the abnormalities, absence of smell is called as anosmia. Anosmia means absence of smell. Then diminished olfactory sensitivity is called hyposmia. That means um, he has less smelling experience. Okay, and that the ability to smell, reduced ability of smell is called hyposmia. Then misleading or false sense of smell is called dysosmia. Dysosmia means if you are giving apple to the person, uh, he cannot differentiate the taste between apple and mango. And such misleading information is called misleading sense of smell is called dysosmia. And most more than 75% of humans over the age of 80 will have impaired ability to identify smells. So after reaching 80 years, we cannot able to detect the variations between multiple smells. So these are the some small clinical applications of smell or clinical conditions of smell. Anosmia means complete absence of smell. Hyposmia means reduced capability of sensing of smell. Dysosmia means misleading or false sensing of smell. And after 80 years, obviously, we will get impaired. Okay, we will get the ability to identify smelling will be reduced after reaching 85 years. Okay, then absence of smell. Complete absence of smell can occur due to trauma. Trauma means bleeding in the nose, or due to cold or allergies. Because of this cold or allergies, there will be excessive accumulation of mucus in the olfactory receptors. If there is excessive mucus, air cannot dissolve efficiently. When air is not dissolving, you cannot taste it, you cannot smell it. So due to presence of mucus, excessive mucus also, you cannot smell. Then presence of any polyps. Polyps means any tumors in the nose can block the air. So if the air is blocked, you cannot smell it. Then 1/3 from zinc deficiency. So zinc deficiency can also result in absence of smell. Not only this, even viral infection, viruses that will particularly attack the olfactory neurons. If the olfactory neurons damaged, then you cannot smell it. Recently, COVID-19 virus
Sure.
is able to destroy the olfactory neurons, but it is temporary destruction. Neurons can able to recover themselves, but during any viral infections also, we will temporarily lose the sensation of smell. So this is all about the smell and its physiology. And also olfactory receptors are by okay. If you smell a strong substance, a highly pungent thing, temporarily your olfactory receptors may damage, but they can adapt to the situation very fastly. There is one more phenomenon called olfactory intolerance. So what is this olfactory intolerance? Olfactory intolerance means um, upon 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 exposing to a constant smell, your brain will nullify that smell. How to tell it? Okay, there is a bad smell in your mouth, but you won't feel it. You know why? Because since this smell is coming constantly, your brain will get adopted. It will say this is a constant background smell and I need not to worry about it. So it will nullify that smell. And that phenomenon is called as olfactory intolerance. Um, this you will experience if you are going to any new home or any new shopping mall. First, you will feel a new smell in the room. Okay, but after 5 or 10 minutes, you won't feel the same smell. You will get adopted to that environment. You won't still feel the same new sensation or new smell sensation in that room. That is called olfactory intolerance. Okay, olfactory intolerance is a phenomenon where our brain will adopt to that particular smell. Okay, and it is very essential. And yeah, not only this, one more interesting thing about smell can also act as a survival mechanism for our old ancestors. You know, if something putrefied, if something decayed, that will release bad smell. So that's by sensing the smell itself, we can able to protect ourselves from eating bad or contaminated things. Imagine yourself, if we don't have smelling sensation, you may eat even rotten substances. You may eat spoiled apple, spoiled meat, and you will get infections. So smell is also acted as a protective mechanism, protective barrier, protective factor for preventing us from exposing to any possible pathogenic infections. So this is all about the smell. And there is a small topic called evolution of smell. So the way our brain processing the smell is started from from very ancestor roots. Um, Believe it or not, our ancestors are not monkeys. Okay, our ancestors are monkeys. The monkeys' ancestors are rats. Rats' ancestors are some fishes. Fishes' ancestors, okay, even if I go back, reptiles, fishes, and we will end up with fishes eventually. The fish brain was gradually evolved to mammalian brain. Even fish can able to sense the smell, but fish does not have this advanced brain. Maybe fish smelled, uh, fish used a part of the brain which is old part of brain. Through evolution, today we are using modern part of the brain to smell the taste, to smell. Okay, so briefly, we got three periods in evolution where the brain was shifted its ability to smell. Okay, so I will show you a small graph here. This one. So olfactory receptors will capture the smell and it will send the data to the nerves, and the nerves will send data to the olfactory bulb, and olfactory bulb will send this data through the wires called olfactory tract to two areas of the brain. One is called medial olfactory area and other one is lateral olfactory area of the brain. So medial olfactory area will send to the hypothalamus or limbic system of brain, which is very old olfactory system of brain. That is why our childhood memories are deeply embedded within the hypothalamus of the brain. Then we have this is hypothalamus and this is hippocampus region of brain. So hippocampus region is a less old olfactory system, and currently the humans are using orbitofrontal cortex of the brain to detect the smells. But still, we possess these two systems where upon stimulation of them will trigger deep memories of our brain. We cannot escape from evolution. We are truly evolved from our previous ancestors. Evolution is stone cold fact. Okay, many people have some disputes about evolution is a fake. If the monkeys evolved to humans, why still there are monkeys? You know, there are some silly questions. Anyway, the sensation of smell itself shows the grand beauty of a long process of 4 billion years of evolution. I know I'm confusing you, but I just felt to share this with you. Personally, I'm a huge evolutionary biologist. I like it a lot, evolution. This is all about the smell, students. A quick revision of today's lecture. In today's lecture, we discussed about the sensing of smell. Sensing of smell is called as olfaction. Olfaction is mediated by the nose. Nose functions include breathing, air conditioning, protecting lower air pathway, or to smell, to sneezing reflexes, and also it will provide vocal resonance. Then this can be done with the help of a specialized structure called olfactory bulb. Olfactory bulb is made up of three things: olfactory organs, olfactory receptors, and olfactory epithelium. Then we discussed about the receptors and mechanism of smell. So first air will be humidified, then it will reach to the receptors. Receptors will send data to the bulb. Bulb will send data to the brain, and brain will process the data, and it will give a possible explanation of what we smelled. So this is all about the thing. Then abnormalities include anosmia means absence of smell. Hyposmia means reduced ability of sensing of smell. Dysnosmia means the misleading of false sensing of smell. And once you reach 80 years, the ability to smell will be gradually diminished. Okay, so that's it. Other conditions of anosmia include trauma, allergies, any blockages in the nose, and zinc deficiency can result in anosmia. And our brain has a capability of adjusting itself to new smells, and that is called olfactory intolerance, which is seen in the receptors. So that's it. Thank you very much, students. In tomorrow's lecture, we will see the functioning of taste, and we will finish this unit 3. Any doubts in
Okay.
today's lecture? No, right?
No, sure.
Thank you, students. Let me download your attendance. If you want, I will show any YouTube video of smell. Just a second. So let us see a short animation on mechanism of smell.
Many of the particles found in the air can stimulate olfactory receptors in the nose, establishing a sense of smell in the cerebral cortex. Smelling plays an important role in choosing food that is safe to eat, or recognizing the characteristic smell of another animal, and therefore in social relationships. Humans and other primates have a relatively weak sense of smell compared to that of other mammals, but even humans can distinguish thousands of smells. The protruding part of the nose is supported by the nasal bone and the cartilage attached to it. The nasal cavity is separated from the mouth cavity by the palate and connected to the middle ear by the eustachian tube. The eustachian tube equalizes pressure between the middle ear and the atmosphere. The nasal cavity is bordered on top by the cribriform plate, a thin, perforated part of the ethmoid bone, where the olfactory nerve, or cranial nerve 1, crosses the nasal epithelium and reaches the olfactory bulb. The 4 to 5 square centimeter large nasal epithelium is located in the topmost part of the nasal cavity. Impulses produced by odors that stimulate the epithelial receptors are transmitted to the olfactory bulb by the olfactory nerve, or cranial nerve 1. The fibers of the olfactory tract transmit the impulses to several parts of the brain. The sense of smell is produced in the cerebral cortex. The olfactory system is also connected to the limbic system, which plays an important role in forming emotions and memory traces. This is why odors often stimulate strong emotions and can also trigger memories. In his novel, In Search of Lost Time, Marcel Proust describes how the smell and taste of a cup of tea reminds him of a series of events in his childhood. This type of involuntary memory is often called Proustian memory, when something that we have learned with a certain smell present is easier to recall when the same smell is present. Odor stimuli are received by receptors of the nasal epithelium. Different receptors are sensitive to different odors. Their impulses are transmitted to the mitral cells of the olfactory bulb, where they are switched and transmitted to the cerebral cortex by the fibers of the olfactory tract.
That's it, students. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.